the big law firms or law firms won't even take a second look at our people. Again, because our marks aren't the best.
Yeah.
You're obviously competing against thousands and thousands of other law grads who are very, very smart and switched on.
Leota Sinaumea Taufao, Director and Co-founder of 𝙧𝙚𝙨 Compensation Lawyers, based in Brisbane, Queensland, Australia, shares his journey from humble beginnings to a highly respected legal powerhouse. His success is attributed to resilience, hard work, and staying true to your cultural roots. His story triggers a dilemma. In the face of resilience, do we throw up our hands or do we roll up our sleeves? Join us, learn how he is breaking barriers and inspiring change across Pasifika communities. Help me welcome Leota Sinaumea Taufao. Leota, malo lava soifo mawana wafionga. Welcome.
Mano soifo moa, mano fulangi mātai. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I am super grateful to be on the show. So it's good to be here, and I'm really looking forward to our discussions today.
Wonderful. All right, Sinau. So one of the main focuses of our podcast is resilience. But before we do go there, I want you to take us back to where your journey, like give us a little bit of background, where you come from, where you're currently living, and how you got to where you are now as the lawyer.
Full Samoan.
Yep.
Born in Samoa, raised for, I guess, the first few years in Samoa.
Yes.
Then I was taken under my grandmother's wing. So my grandmother raised me from, so I was like 5 years old. And she was by my side throughout that whole time. Up until, I'm a grown man with kids, she was still there by my side. But we made the typical migration route from Samoa to New Zealand, then New Zealand to Australia. Yeah. And when we moved here, we lived on the north side in Strathpine. And that's where I did my high schooling. Bray Park State High School. And then after that, mum and dad are pastors and ministers of church. So when they were posted to Inala, that's where we moved to Ipswich. And now I'm here in Ipswich right now. So it's a short picture of my journey. Yeah, I know we'll go into it more as we go, but just as a short picture of my journey. Yeah.
Okay, so straight out of high school, straight into uni. Did you know that you've always wanted to be a lawyer? Take us through that journey, education.
Yeah, so like all Pasifika households, mum and dad are massive on make sure you get a good education. But like all Pasifika kids, we like to rebel, right? And we like to say, hey, I want to be the next famous rugby player. I want to be the next sports star. Sports is ingrained in us. It's like a natural skill that we are gifted from God, So that was me in growing up in high school. I wanted to be a rugby player. And so through the early years of my high school, grade 8 to grade 10, my parents were like, you need to go to school, you need to go to school, you need to go to school. But all I wanted to do was kick around a rugby ball. So while my parents were doing that, I never had or never dreamt that I would be here where I am now, back in grade 8. I always saw myself, and this is a dream that I know a lot of Pasifika kids out there have, is I want to be playing at Suncorp full of people watching me, and I want to be on the big stages. I like to say that I represent a big population of our kids. Their aspirations, and I love that aspiration for our kids. So that's why I started, because I was like, I saw all the superstars coming from the All Blacks, Wallabies. It wasn't until about grade 11, I went and played a rugby game and I got injured. And that's where my mum and dad sat me down and they were like, it's time for you to now pick, or it's time for you to hear this advice.
Yes.
And all they said to me was, your education is so important. Like, it's so important, because if you fail from sport, or if you don't make it, where are you going to go?
Yeah.
You know? And I know they were speaking from a place of love, because I had seen them just work day and night. And obviously they don't want us in that same position.
Yes. Yeah.
So they said, look, follow your dreams and chase your dreams, but your education is still important. And that's when I started to pick up, okay, I actually need to take education very seriously. So I was never the smartest in the class, nor do I claim to ever be the smartest in the class, right?
Yes.
But I tried so hard in grade 11 and grade 12, and I got into a Bachelor of Business and Sports Management. Mum and Dad were like, try and get into medicine, you know, try and get into law, you know, the usuals, medicine, law, engineering, you know. But when I applied, this was my way of saying, all right, if I'm not going to be playing professional sport, I may as well study and try and find a job where I'm working alongside those professionals, you know, right? So I went and did a business degree at Griffith, and I majored in sports management and marketing. So that's where the whole sports thing came along. And then after that, I graduated, and I wanted to work in sport. So I was like looking for jobs in the sporting sector because of that. But then it came to, I guess the turning point for me was, we had like a personal experience, a family experience, where obviously we had a niece. So my brother had a daughter, and my mum and dad, their hearts were so drawn to, and we were all drawn to this particular niece of ours, or granddaughter. And the reason why is because, you know, things happen, and, you know, time has passed now, and time has been the biggest healer of things. But at that time, we just weren't able to, you know, we were so helpless. We weren't able to see her. We weren't able to go and meet with their granddaughter or our niece, which really broke me, because like I see them like crying on the dinner table. They're just missy alofa for ingali, you know, they just want to see that. And I sat there and I'm like, what can I do? You know, they've given so much to me, but what can I do to make sure my family will never have to go through something like this again? And straight away, bam, law came into the question, like law came into the picture. I was like, because they were looking for a lawyer at the time. But the common theme was, ikaw ka kailan lawyer, you know, it's so expensive, we can't afford a lawyer. So they were again back at square one, so helpless. And that was my ultimate motivator to get into law. So after I did that business degree, I was like, you know what? No, I'm going to actually go into law. So I did a double degree in law and commerce. And that's where I studied law, finished it, and then come out and I started working as a lawyer. So, you know, I always wanted to work in that area of like family law, which is like where you're dealing with those sorts of situations. But it was probably God's will to throw me into the area of law that I work in now, because it's an area of law where now I'm like, well, it's perfect for me. I'm giving back to my community. I'm able to I find purpose in helping my people. And that's just how it's been. So yeah, that's kind of the journey.
The journey and how you transition from business, marketing, sporting, because you wanted to stay connected to the sport. And like you said, I don't know whether I should use this word, but typically the Pasifika children growing up do want to specialize in be playing sport. Did you just, was it because you watched a lot of Pasifika people go through sporting as well, you thought, okay, I'm going to do the same thing? You didn't think outside of that until your parents, you know, encouraged you and pushed you to, or the injury.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's everything that you've just explained. So because I've just come from New Zealand and all they do in New Zealand is watch rugby, right? It's just sports, 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 sports. You come here and it's the only thing that you want to do as well. So that was a big motivator or a big reason why I wanted to pursue sports. It's just because I've seen so much success from sport, and I didn't see any success elsewhere. So I didn't see, you know, there was never a Samoan lawyer in headlines that I was able to aspire to become.
Yes.
So it was always rugby players or musicians, you know. I didn't have the musical talents, but I was like, I think rugby's the one. But I guess you could say the injury itself, that was the opportunity that created the opportunity for mum and dad's counsel to actually get in there and really set into my mind. School is what you need. You need a backup plan. So, and I know a lot of our kids out there are hearing the same speech. So if you are listening out there, take it in.
Get an education.
That's it.
But isn't it funny that injury, something painful, something that would stop, you in your tracks to pursuing something that you were so passionate about, actually changed the direction that I believe, maybe you believe, your parents definitely believe that you were meant to go into. And although you studied business to start off with, you pivoted because of the family situation. So pain through injury, pain through family, directed or redirected your path. That's pretty amazing.
It is. Pain is absolutely a massive motivator for, it's, and I don't mean this in a bad way, and I don't think that anyone should go looking for pain to just, push themselves, but pain was the motivator for me to kind of switch my brain on. Because for the majority of my life, it was just focused, on one thing, on rugby. So, you got to realize when you got to know your limits and know when it's done. It's time for you to just hang up the boots.
Yes. I love that. That's quite. I can relate to that. Pain does allow us or makes us and forces us to move a different direction, direction that I believe we were predestined for. Because otherwise we would be so locked into this mindset that we're really investing our time in a thing, career, or whatever it be, when you're not meant to be there. So during the transition, during that period of time where you witnessed your family go through this, horrible situation, so to speak, it allowed you to go into it with a mindset. And I see that you advocate for our Pasifika people out there in the community. I've read that you love to educate them, that there is a lack of representation. So coming from the family perspective, that situation which allowed you to go into it, you now do that for the community. Talk us through why you want to be and wanted to be involved heavily in the community, because you are such a leader, proactive leader in that community, our Pasifika community.
Part of the reason why is because when you see someone who comes from such, people who aren't as, aren't as privileged, to understand, to really know what's going on. So, we come here, English is our second language, or for our parents, English is your second language, their second language. So when they're at a disadvantage and you see it, it's just something that builds up inside you that's just like, oh man, I really just don't want to leave them like that. I really just don't want to, I hate to see my people like that. And because I guess growing up in the church, right? Mum and dad were pastors of a church. They were always about giving to the less fortunate or making sure that everyone else was okay, the congregation.
Yeah.
So I saw a lot of that growing up.
Yes.
And I guess it's like a button that switches on, you know. So when I went into the legal industry, I saw it, like, you know, yeah, there's lawyers everywhere, and they're helping out everyone.
Yeah, yeah.
But the Pasifika community, when I was saying underrepresented, I meant uneducated. And I don't mean that in any disrespectful way. I mean that in the real sense that there wasn't someone out there advocating or presenting the knowledge or the information to them
Yeah.
in a way that they can take it
Understand. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
even if I have to speak my half-broken English sometimes,
yes,
just
yes.
for them to,
As we do.
just for them to kind of understand what we're putting out in front of them. Because the issue that I saw was they'd come into a meeting and, you know, whoever the lawyer is in front of them, piles and piles and piles of paper in front of them, and paperwork. Our people aren't sitting there reading it. They're sitting there, well, where do I sign? And they're signing not knowing what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
And I was sitting there thinking, well, hey, do you understand what they're saying? And they're saying, oh, you know, well, we just do it because we don't understand. And bam, there's my opportunity to come in and serve.
Nice.
It's my opportunity to serve. So I use it as opportunity to serve, because I come from a background, or my parents are servant leaders. So when I came into it, I was like, I want to be an image like that. So I want to be a servant leader. So when I see it, I'm like, oh, well, you know what? Let me give it to you this way. And you'll see a massive difference in the way our people are, you know. It affects their decision making. And that's what I want. I don't want them to just go in and just be like, oh yeah, whatever. When I sit down and I'm explaining everything, if it's in Samoan, I'll speak Samoan and speak it to them, or explain it to them in Samoan. If it's in, you know, Fijian or Tongan, you know, I'll get someone who speaks that language to help me out with this. And straight away they're like, oh, I don't think, you know, this is right for me, or, you know, but it's giving them that feeling of empowerment that I can make this decision because I know what's best for me, not because I'm getting told what to do. So that's what I'm wanting to make sure our people are getting, you know, as a community.
That's so deep. That is so meaningful and so empowering to listen to, you know what I mean? And I love it that you're, you know, creating that awareness and educating our people, you know, that they too can understand. Because when you share that part of your story where you said, you know, I wasn't the most, you know, smartest person in my class, and nor do I claim to be. But when people see the Sinau, the lawyer, you know, and that's the purpose of this podcast, is because we want to hear Sinau, the person. And that is there, right there, where you speak about your heart to want to educate the people. That is Sinau, the person. But you yourself had to go through these challenges, right? Of resilience, the pain and injury, the pain to see your family, to get to here. And now you are serving in the community, you know. How, because I see that you're very involved, you know, with not just the community, you've got the business, and I can only imagine, you know, what it's like to have and own your own business. Talk us through how WT was birthed.
So WT was birthed, it was birthed at the randomest time, right? Like, I met my business partner in uni.
Right.
And we were friends throughout uni. And then when uni finished, he was actually the one that got me the job at the law firm that I was at.
Right.
And at that law firm, we were like two peas in the pod. You couldn't separate us. They tried, many have tried and many have failed. You couldn't just separate us. And we did everything together. So coming through that, we were sitting there thinking, and I told him, look, my heart is for my people. It always is for my people. And he saw that. So he was like, oh yeah, you know, he was the one that was like pushing me, because a lot of the times, and this is in the legal sphere, like, you know, just a bit of education for our people. In a lot of the times, I do the work, but someone else will be like, oh, this is the bill that you got to give to them. So, and a lot of the time when the bill's passed to me and it's my Pasifika people that I'm serving, I'm not happy with the bill that they're passing to me. And I would have coffee catch-ups. You can't count how many coffee meetings that me and my best friend Jono had, my business partner. And I would just be venting to him, just saying, look, I don't think this is right. Come on, do you think this is right? He's like, no, definitely not right. You know, there's something has to change. Because he saw the way I was, and he was like, man, I am all for what you're doing, you know, just trying to fight. Because I'd go back to them and I'd be like, no, you know, come on, bring it down. You know, that's not how we're doing this. And then they come and I'll still be like, no. And it'd just be like clashing. And I'd have to go and face these clients after. And most of the time it's our people. And I think it was like two or three times I had to do that and have that conversation with the client. And it just tore me. And I was like, I can't do this. Like, I literally can't do this. But work was like, no, you just gotta suck it up. Just gotta suck it up. That's law. You know, and then the industry is cutthroat. You know, well, you'll hear it a lot that the legal industry is very cutthroat. You know, you just got to do things you don't want to do. And then, amidst our venting, he goes, man, we should just start up our own thing. And I was like, what? He's like, we should just start up our own thing, and that way we'd be able to do things the way we want to do it for the people that we want to, you know, to serve. And the idea of WT Compensation Lawyers was born. So that's how it was birthed. It was birthed again from pain. So it was from pain. There's a common theme here. But it was just pain seeing my people just, getting taken advantage of.
And during those moments of pain, how did you come out of it? What was the Chandelier moment that helped you weather that pain? Or those situations, or each situation?
I guess constant counsel from my father, my mother, you know, my wife. She was a massive like, hey, I know this is stressful, but you know, you've got this, you've got a gift, and you've just got to keep going. You just got to keep going. So her pushing me was massive for me, because if I didn't have that push, I'd just probably just stand still and, you know, just won't want to do law. There was a point in my life where I was like, I don't think I want to do this anymore because of the pain that it's causing. But it was just my support network. They were massive during this time. It was like I'd come home, and this was when I was with mum and dad, and I'm like, I'm not happy with this. Like, what do you think? And they're like, yeah, that's actually not the best thing for you. You know, you should. I'm not happy with. No, there was about the situation at work. I'm like, I'm not happy with this. How can, you know? And they'd talk me through it. They'd kind of counsel me on how to discuss these things have these conversations with our people. But I didn't like that situation in the first place. So, you know, but they counseled me, and then as soon as they heard, oh, you're starting a new law firm, you're wanting to start a law firm, they're like, push, go. Good. So their push, my wife's push, was everything to me.
So you had a well-established family network, tight-knit, and your wife playing a huge part in being that advocate, you know, that push you. And now everyone knows of WT Compensation Lawyers, and more so our Pasifika people. But isn't it amazing how when you say I wasn't the smartest person, it really does showcase that when you put your mind and heart to it, you can achieve anything.
Absolutely.
And I believe that I've read many, of your interviews that that's what you advocate as well. That we're not going to be just a typical, so to speak, Pasifika Islander that is going to play just rugby or just be a singer or whatever. That there you can step outside of that to become someone such as yourself, a lawyer. So can you reflect and think about a significant time where you encountered challenge, a trial that you thought, man, I can't do this anymore. How did you overcome it? What was the Chandelier moments where you thought no and just continue to move forward and grow? Yeah.
That moment was the start of WT. It was like at the start of WT. So when we just made that, started the idea, but it was the very first day that we left our old firm.
Right.
And we left our old firm, and I knew what was going to be said was, they're just two guys. They're not gonna make it. There's a lot of negativity that comes out of that situation, right?
Yes.
But more importantly, it was just a really, really, really tough time for us. My wife had just given birth. We had just bought a house, and it was like, you just buying a house and your wife's giving birth and you're starting a business. So it was like one of the toughest decisions for me to make, especially the timing wise, right? Timing wise, just if you say that situation to anyone else, they would have been like, I wouldn't have started it then. I definitely wouldn't have started then. But at that time, I felt God calling me. It was like, you need to do it. Forget about everything that's happening around you. But if you want this, now's the time to do it. So it was during that time that I was like, oh my God, like what is going on? Like, we're doing big days at work, big days, just me and my business partner. We were working out of his apartment for the first 6 months. So we're doing like long days there. My wife's just giving birth, come home, just trying to make ends meet at the start, because everything we put into WT Compensation Lawyers. So that was a very, very, very tough and challenging time for us. But what kept me going was everyone's prayers. And I just prayed as well. I was like, God, please, if this is what you want me to do and you want me to suffer just so I can get this dream of mine, I will gladly do it. And I'll tell you now, I will gladly do it over and over and over and over again. Purely because I'm in a position right now where I'm like, wow, what a journey. I can look back 2 years ago and just be like, man, that was not, and everyone says, oh, it's a good story. No, it's not a story. I don't just say it as it's a story. It's a story to everyone else because they didn't experience it. It was a tough experience, but now I'm like, wow, God, thank you so much. Like, I'm so thankful. I had to go through the tough to be able to, but there's a lesson in that, right? Nothing ever comes easy in life. So you've actually got to go through the tough to get, to where you want to be.
Jesus, empowering. This is massive. Oh my gosh. I'm like, so how do you see or view resilience now from that experience to and future challenges, what am I trying to say? From that experience, how do you now see resilience? Is it something that you look forward to with regard to challenges that you think to yourself, man, if I've conquered that, I can conquer more?
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
So, I never let it get to my head that I can conquer that. I can conquer anything. It's like, I've come to that. Okay, let's see what's in front of us. I know I've got the ability to do it because I've been able to do hard things before. but I never go into it like, oh yeah, I can do this. Oh yeah, I can do this. You know, it's always good, and then, you know, you'll hear it from everyone else say, yeah, you got to go in it with that positive mindset. And that's what I always go in it with, the positive mindset, but I always go in it with a humble heart as well, because if you go into it arrogantly, it never comes to fruition, or you never get the outcome that you want, right? So it's for me, it's my mindset to make sure that I know I know what I've come from, or the challenges that I've faced, but the challenge in front of me is different. But how can I use my experience to tackle the challenge in front of me? So that's how I view resilience now. It's awesome. Like it's definitely something I look forward to. Like, because it's like built. It's like a storage tank, right? Like as you fight resilience, it builds up, and the more resilience you have, the more you're able to kind of tolerate.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's powerful right there. And you know, for those who are viewing this, or will view this, will be so empowered by that. You know, especially when they look at what you've built and the time that you pivoted to decide with Jono to build WT. It was the most challenging time. You know, your wife just had a baby, you just walked away from your job, and you decided to. That's huge. That is huge. And I love it that, you know, that you share where you got that strength from, you know, your faith in God, the community, your family. When you reflect your journey, the Sinau now, what would the Sinau now say to the Sinau, the younger Sinau who just started this journey, the transition from the Bachelor of Business, pivoting to law, and experiencing those painful moments? What would you say back there?
What I would say is that seriously take in what your parents are saying, because they've experienced life. Like now I've experienced more life, but they've actually gone through life experiences, and they're just, you know, we hear it all the time, like fumble more this, fumble more that, and you know, you got to do this, but we never really take it in, right? And as a kid, I never really took it in. But for me, if I was to look back and I'm like, actually listen to mum and dad and take in what they were saying. Because if you had listened a little bit earlier, you would have realized this, you know, and things may have been a bit different. But at the same time, like, you make mistakes, and you just learn from your mistakes. Yeah.
And it's almost like you had to go through those experiences and make those mistakes to get to where you were. Because if it was just smooth sailing, maybe you would have thought, oh, I can do anything, and not you know, start a WT. WT lawyers. What legacy do you wish to leave the younger generation, or for your family?
The legacy I wish to leave is, that's a good one. I want to be remembered as someone who served fiercely. Someone who served fiercely. And someone who was able to, I guess, break some chains in our Pasifika community. You know, there are other Pasifika lawyers out there, and I don't want to take away from them, because they have also played a part in my journey as well. But I want to be remembered as someone who inspired mainly our Pasifika people. Yeah, because that's culture's massive for me.
I know. Speaking of culture, it was really nice to see that you sat down with the Prime Minister of Samoa. Talk us through that. And I know you did speak about it briefly off camera. Just for the sake of our viewers as well. I share that experience. How that made you feel to sit down with the Prime Minister of Samoa.
Absolutely, it was, to be honest, to this day I still kind of think, did I really interview the Prime Minister of Samoa? Because I still pinch myself thinking, man, what an experience, what a life experience. It's not every day that you get to sit down and obviously interview the Prime Minister, you know, and it wasn't I don't take all the credit for that, because there are other people there who made it happen.
Yeah.
So, you know, to be the one to be able to sit down with the Prime Minister, wow, she is who you see, like just powerful, independent women of Samoa who just advocate really strongly and just genuine. You know, you see a lot of people, politicians, that aren't genuine in who they are. She's very, very, very genuine. So to sit there and experience that was like, oh, it was like a bucket list for me, because I'm like, wow, when we always see it on TV and we always see them on TV, but you never think you'd be sitting in the same room or even be interviewing them or speaking to them. So that was something really special for me.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I saw, I thought, fuck, because I watched the interview and I thought, you know what, that's well deserved for you to be able to have that opportunity. And I know that you go by one of the quotes, one of the many quotes that you use, Samoan proverbs. And I'll say in Samoa, ole ala I le pule o le tautua. And I believe you sitting on that chair with that, you know, significant, you know, Prime Minister of Samoa, it was a given. Given, you know, what you've shared in terms of, you know, your servant heart, you know, and you gained that from the examples of your parents, you know, that led you to that prime, you know, moment. You know, it's truly humbling. You know, I can only imagine that you would have felt. And so I believe that's a massive lesson, you know, to weather the challenges that you went through and continue to serve. You know, that was well deserved. It was meant to be.
Thank you.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So through those challenges, I did those moments. How were you able to balance, you know, being a husband, being a dad?
I'll tell you what, there wasn't a lot of balance.
Because I'm like, you built this business.
Oh, there wasn't a lot of balance, and I'd like to give a shout out to my wife and my mother-in-law.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I've got 4 kids now.
Yes.
And I'm able to do what I'm doing, and not worry about the kids, but not have to obviously have that added pressure on because of their tireless work that they do. So, you know, it doesn't go without saying that I owe a massive thank you to them as well, because, you know, they have been part of my journey as well. I wouldn't be the Sinau in WT compensation lawyers if it weren't for my wife, my mother-in-law, my parents, my family, the support network. And I always bring it back to the support network, because they've always been there for me, you know, from the start of my journey, selling chocolate boxes and doing all that stuff, even to now, where they're right there. They're just, and they are always there for me. So that's how I weathered that or balanced that. So sometimes there will not be balance, and I'm just so grateful that at a time where there wasn't balance, there was my support network. And I think that's something that our community should also look at as well. Is like, sometimes you won't have balance in your life, and sometimes it's just the nature of what you're going through, but your support network will always balance things out for you. You know, so that's how I've managed it.
Wonderful. Future plans for WT lawyers. Would you like to share?
Future plans. Well, we're always out in the community. Always out in the community. We are looking to make sure that we bring on. I'm always on the lookout for Pasifika law students and also lawyers, graduates. I'm a strong believer in that. If I say we have a slogan, you know, for Pasifika, by Pasifika. So when I say by Pasifika, I want there to be a firm of Pasifika. We want to be, not just say we're a Pasifika owned law firm, but say we are a Pasifika law firm. And the reason why I do that is because, you know, I was fortunate to have Jono there, who kind of was like, oh yeah, you know, come here. I know that a lot of other Pasifika students or graduates out there don't have this opportunity, don't have that luxury of, oh, hey, come work here.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times, the employers or the big law firms or law firms
Yeah.
won't even take a second look at our people. I don't know why, but they won't even take a second look. Obviously, again, because our marks aren't the best.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you're obviously competing against thousands and thousands of other law grads who are very, very smart and switched on.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as you can see, it's not, and I've always been advocating, you don't have to be the smartest person to make it.
Yeah.
It's about your work ethic and your drive.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, if you've got a passion and you got your heart to destined on something or focused on something, push.
Yeah.
So that's WT in the future. In the community, always.
Yes.
We never want to lose that about us. But we are wanting to grow our Pasifika person now. We just want to be that Pasifika law firm.
Yeah. More Pasifika law firms being established.
Yeah.
And I love it that you shared that, because a lot of those students who are, in law, wanting to, maybe start their own business, the Taufao, what you just shared.
Yeah.
Sinau, of all areas of law that you could have specialized in, why compensation law and TPD?
The reason is pretty simple. The reasoning behind it is because I realized that so many of our people get into accidents.
Yes.
They're hard workers, so we are some of the hardest workers in the world. For me personally, I think we are the hardest workers in the world. Always in the room, hardest working in the room. And a lot of times we get into these accidents, whether it be on the road in a car, at work. Sometimes people will go through, they'll suffer from an injury or an illness that will stop them from working. And a lot of the times we just don't know what to do. Again, there's a lack of, and there's a gap there in the education, in educating our people.
Nice.
So, and that's the whole reason why, is because I want to create a space where, okay, if our people are getting into an accident, they know who they can approach and say, hey, look, I was involved in a car accident. Hey, look, I was involved in a work accident. What do I do? And it's breaking down the barrier that, I'm going to be faced with a Palangi lawyer. I've got to speak to this person and I'm not too comfortable. But cultural relevance is what I want to kind of touch on here, is making sure that they're able to see, there's an islander there. There's an islander there. I can go to him and speak to him about it. So that's what I want to make sure that our people are getting, is they get into an accident, they know that there's someone there. They know that there's someone there that they feel comfortable with, that they can speak to, and that I can kind of give the message to them in a way, play that up to them in a way that they're able to take in and then easily understand and make a decision from there. Okay? Too many times our people let our pride take over. And it happens in every situation, every family. My family, it happens, You get into an accident, you get into a work accident. What's the number one thing? I got to go to work to provide. I got to provide for my family. That is correct. That is completely correct. But we live in, that's in Samoa, that's the Samoan, in Samoa. When you're in Samoa, that's the way of thinking. In Australia, there are systems and processes in place to make sure that if you're off work, there's something there to assist you. You've got something there to help you out, by way of income or weekly income or some sort of compensation that you'll be able to get. So we just need to understand that and then make sure that we're able to comfortable to approach the right person.
Love that. Any final advice?
Final advice for our Pasifika people would be, for the youth, it would be, we're more than rugby players and musicians. There's nothing wrong with being a rugby player or a musician. But I want to make sure that our people know that, look, there is life outside of that. You know, there are dreams outside of that, and they can be yours for the taking if you just dare to dream and dare to take that step. You just gotta take that first step, and you'll realize, okay, you know, there is something else out there. So yeah, dare to dream, challenge the unknown. So making sure that, you know, it might be hard for us at the start, but as soon as we start walking there, it becomes something that we're used to, and then we grow into it, and then that's obviously, if you live life in the bubble, you're only going to know the bubble. So,
Not step outside of it.
yeah, step outside of it. So yeah, there is life outside of what we usually know as Islanders.
Thank you so much for sharing those nuggets. Lots of golden nuggets, right? Thank you so much.